This was getting some discussion after the verdict yesterday. When you heard that Trump's WinRed donation site was down because of all of the people logging on to make a contribution as they're striking the blow against what happened in Manhattan. Sean McGuire is a partner at Sequoia Capital, which is a big private equity concern. He took to Twitter to announce he was donating $300,000 to Trump. And he writes, "I'm prepared to lose friends." As if that's some great sacrifice. Oh, the educated classes. We talked earlier about why that boomerang effect that MAGA world thought would be coming at some point over the last 8 years has never really materialized. And one of the things many people don't appreciate is the mentality of the quote-unquote educated and how much they prize being au courant and popular and well-received at the country club over, say, other people's constitutional rights. How truly barbaric they are. Sean McGuire going on to explain himself. "Back in 2016, I drank the media Kool-Aid and was scared out of my mind about Trump. So I donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign and voted for her. By 2020, I was disillusioned and didn't vote. I didn't like either option. Now in 2024, I believe this is one of the most important elections of my lifetime, and I'm supporting Trump. I know that I'll lose some friends for this. Some will refuse to do business with me. If you can make a $300,000 donation to a candidate, you're probably beyond being touched by people who won't do business with you. But I digress. Okay. The media will probably demonize me. I doubt many know who you are, as they have so many others before me. But despite this, I still believe it's the right thing to do. I refuse to live in a society where people are afraid to speak." Well, now he does. And, I'm in the Buckley School. You got to give people room to come over to your side. But I'm hardly impressed by this display of self-styled courage. And interestingly, too, this is a long essay he wrote laying out his position. Apparently, he used to work in national security in some capacity. Okay. And so he's found Biden's foreign policy disastrous, but that's a grand insight, and particularly offended because he's very pro-Israel by his treatment of Israel in terms of the response post the 10/7 terrorist attack, but also the Afghanistan withdrawal and all of the other catastrophes, right. The helping Iran nuclearize and so forth. The educated classes, what are we to do about them? So Sean McGuire, because he made a $300,000 donation and he's offering his little Jerry Maguire moment there, gets a lot of attention, but who should get a lot of attention instead, if you want to appreciate this moment, is one of the underappreciated assets of American intellectualism over the last 60 years, Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell writing yesterday, actually a quote of his resurfacing. "It doesn't matter what rights you have under the Constitution of the United States if the government can punish you for exercising those rights. And it doesn't matter what limits the Constitution puts on government officials' power if they can exceed those limits without any adverse consequences. In other words, the Constitution cannot protect you if you don't protect the Constitution with your votes against anyone who violates it. Those government officials who want more power are not going to stop unless they get stopped. As long as millions of Americans vote on the basis of who gives them free stuff, look for their freedom and all our freedom to be eroded away bit by bit. Our children and grandchildren may yet come to see the Constitution as just some quaint words from the past that people once took seriously." Right. Well, that's where we're at. And it's why it's something that Sowell understands and that the left understands. That has power, that belief that Sowell is talking about. The understanding that our rights are written in paper, but they are hard fought in terms of existence generation after generation. It was a point that Reagan used to make all the time as well. And it's why you hear your rights will be taken away. He'll never leave office. Our democracy's at stake. He'll shred the Constitution endlessly from the other side. And what do we say in response? Look at how much groceries are. Look at how much filling up your car is. And we think that's being, we're so much more practical. Yeah, but the power of this idea of government and the kind of society you live in, that matters. And so you have to engage at that level too. And you can't let them project onto you all the things that they are, which is what Republicans continue to do to their fail. Because particularly when it comes to the educated classes, those who think they're enlightened and those who are insulated because of their money, well, now I'm an elder. I'm a community elder. I'm an important person. I'm a thinker. I'm a high information voter. I'm smart. I know things. I'm a leader. And so I'm thinking about the big things like how society should be ordered and protecting our democracy, whatever that means. I have no idea, but I'm just going to say it because that's what I hear other people saying because I'm so smart. I'm so enlightened. I'm so well read. There are none of those things. But those appeals to saving the world, protecting our democracy, have great currency within those educated classes. And it's, I would argue, our failure as conservatives and as Trump supporters over the last 8 years to address that, which is one of the reasons that boomerang effect that was anticipated never really materialized. And it still hasn't. And we don't know if it will between now and November. For more on all of this, the esoteric and the practical, we're pleased to be joined by Chris Whalen, investment banker, chairman of Whalen Global Advisors, author of Ford Men from Inspiration Enterprise, and editor for the Institutional Risk Analyst. Chris, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, Dan. Good speech, by the way. I like that.
Thank you very much. Well, I mean, you're a man of letters. What's your perspective on the educated class? You know, we're talking about the suburbs around metropolitan areas that Trump lost in swing states, which is why he lost in 2020, and which is why the election very much hangs in the balance, even had he not been convicted in 2024. So what do you say about them?
Well, you nailed it. I think there is a certain upper class in this country that is fascinated by the old liberal narrative. But what they don't realize is that the media, which they control, is misreporting the election. In other words, if you really talk to people and say, what's important to you? It's inflation. That's the issue that's going to beat Joe Biden. And sure, you know, we're pissed off about the way they are misusing the law in New York and punishing Donald Trump for his various offenses. But ultimately, that's good for him. You know, as Jim Rickard said this morning, I'm voting for the convicted felon. And I think every Republican that's ambulatory in this country is going to vote in November. So once again, the Democrats have misplayed the hand. They don't understand why this man is so popular. I'm going fishing in a couple of weeks up in Maine. And last time I did my straw poll at Lean Lodge, they picked Trump in 2016 overwhelmingly. I can't wait to hear what they say this year.
Right. Are you surprised? I mean, just on the practical matter, Amy and I were talking about this off air. You know, I expected the markets to react pretty negatively to this occurrence yesterday, and at least the futures, it was modestly negative, but nothing too heavy.
No, again, it's going to help them. I think business people from Elon Musk to the folks you were talking about are all going to vote for Trump because they see that the Democrats do not have a plan for governing the country. We have a dilettante as Secretary of the Treasury who would rather, you know, talk about global warming than the fact that she's borrowing 25% of what we're spending this year. You know, the U.S. is headed for debt default and an IMF debt restructuring. Wouldn't that be fun? And I'm not sure Trump is ready to deal with this either. Whoever wins in November has a problem because we cannot continue this way for more than another couple of years. We're going to have to raise taxes. We're or cut spending. That's it. And I don't think this country is ready to have that conversation. I'm reissuing my first book, Inflated, next year, and editing that book is such fun because what has changed in 15 years? Nothing. It's only gotten worse. And both parties. Plus, we have crypto. Now, is crypto the answer? No. No, it's a market controlled by grifters. But the point is, Americans do feel the need for change. They do feel the need for alternatives. I don't think I got to listen to Mark Halperin this week at a private conversation that was hosted by some friends of mine in Washington. I don't even think Joe's going to make it to election day. It sounds like he's done. So it's going to be Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. She will not step down. Obama and Nancy Pelosi will not be able to clean up the mess the way they did in 2020 when they got the other candidates to withdraw. And this is going to be a fiasco for the Democrats. And you're going to be there. It's going to be in Chicago.
Well, what do you mean he's not going to step down, but he's not going to make it to November? What does that mean?
No, I think the party's going to basically accept the fact that he can't function anymore. He's reached the end of the road. And Kamala Harris will be the candidate. They can't say no to her. Come on.
Well, don't you? I mean, he'll make it to the first debate at the end of this month.
We'll see. We'll see, guys. When you reach that point in your life, they don't know. I remember before my dad passed away last year, some days he had great days. I would have put him on television. Other days he didn't. He wasn't even there.
Well, they just
that's where Joe Biden is now.
Yeah, but they just have to pick their spots now. He has to survive 2 days, basically, the 2 debates, because otherwise you just
a range of days.
Well,
he's got the DNC too, though.
Well, yeah, but you could tape a speech. I mean, there's ways. I mean, look, I'm not going full Dave here, but there are ways around this. I'm serious. There are ways around this for a guy or his the person who has power of attorney over him, Jill Biden, to say we're not going anywhere, and all we have to do is these 3 dates, and we'll figure our way around him, and then we'll spend $500 million saying you can't have a convicted felon in the White House, and we'll take our chances.
That's right. It's like Donald not taking the stand in this farce, right? So Joe shouldn't take the stand.
Right.
But it reminds me, remember years ago, National Lampoon had a wonderful essay called The Telejester, which basically said that Richard Nixon had a key in his back and they had to wind him up.
Right. Yeah, well, life could be imitating. Life could be imitating National Lampoon's art, for what that's worth. So, where are things? We're still clicking along. It's slow growth. Don't call it it's slow growth, high inflation, but don't call it stagflation. And 2/3 of Americans think things are on the wrong track economically, and Biden's under 40%. But we're still muddling along, and we don't seem to have any real urgency about changing our course, as you were just talking about, and as Thomas Sowell was mentioning, a vote on the basis of giving us free stuff. That still seems to be the order of the day.
Well, yes and no. I think there's a growing awareness among business people, the people who are supporting Donald Trump, that we can't keep going on for longer. And also, I think there's an awareness that the increase in interest rates by the Fed over the last couple of years was not so much about fighting inflation as it was about normalizing interest rates to levels that actually work. So if you look at the deficit today, you shouldn't cut rates at all until Congress deals with the deficit. And that's what a Fed chairman who has a couple of huevos would say. Powell's not like that. But if Trump wins, I think you'll see a couple members of the FOMC resign. And then maybe Powell cuts rates in December and he also leaves too. And maybe on his way out the door for the history books, he says, look, guys, we can't cut rates anymore. You've got to do something with the deficit. Because this economy is running hot, guys, and it may look okay from the surface, but underneath, what do we have going on? Commercial real estate, which to me is the analog for the deflation in the farm sector a century ago. Imagine if we start seeing substantial bank failures next year because of commercial real estate. I think that's what we got in the cards. And equities are crazy. We haven't had any IPO activity in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So investors are paying more for the same thing. Look at banks. J.P. Morgan at 2 times book. Okay. I don't think that's great value. There's a lot of deals out there with small banks, but I think unfortunately those shares could go lower because of concerns about commercial.
Chris Whalen, investment banker, chairman of Whalen Global Advisors, author of Ford Men from Inspiration to Enterprise, and editor of the Institutional Risk Analyst. Chris Whalen, thanks as always.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy.